Directrex. Spelled direct and then Rix. Yep. Stuff we did with Quadratics last week, where we did the vertex and the axis of symmetry and the min and the max, that is still the main important stuff. This, however, is also a characteristic of a parabola, so we got to cover it, but we won't see this near as much. You don't have to have them perfect, but you need an idea of which way they're facing. The prosecutor from the Garland County called me this morning and said everything is good to be released. So I'm going to call them at lunch and set up an appointment to go get it, which means that I'm probably going to have to be out one day this week because they only work during the normal day. Yeah. Pretty fired up. It's been almost a year and I'm still waiting to get stuff done. last year my house got broken into and I got robbed, and I had Maddie in class until she's been following the saga. Just now, today, they've released the rest of my stuff because they caught who had it all. So it's been almost a year, and finally I'm fixing to get the rest of my stuff back.
Dang, they keep it that long?
Yeah, because they had to wait. It was evidence during the trial, and they had to wait for all that nonsense.
They still like a whole lot?
Well, everything that I had that was valuable, they stole. All my guitars, all my guns, and all my TVs.
Dang.
I had gotten back, before school started, I got back 2 guitars and 1 TV. Now, this load will be 3 guns and 1 guitar that I'm going to get back. There was 1 TV, 1 guitar, and 1 gun that was never accounted for. So somebody must have just kept that for themselves. The rest of the stuff they tried to sell at pawn shops, and so that's how I'm getting it back. But this one has my Martin guitar, which is my big, expensive guitar, so I'm excited. Get it back. Still see a couple rotten, so we're about there, we're about there. One thing that was really funny to me is in my nightstand by my bed, I had a handgun in that drawer, and they opened that drawer and got the handgun out, but then I had like a little metal box that had emergency cash in it. They never opened that box. Never, they got the gun and left $1,000 emergency cash.
Man. That's how some people be. Like, I guess they're so in a hurry they don't think that much.
I'm looking for it.
They're just trying to find quick stuff.
Yeah.
They must have been there quite a while though to get 3 TVs.
Yeah, 2 TVs.
Oh.
2 TVs, but yeah, they were there. But I don't know, I don't have any neighbors that you can see, so they could have pulled behind my house and stayed all day.
Were you here when that happened? Were you here when that happened?
Yeah, it was during the school day. And I get here at like 5:30, and I went to run after school, so I got home at like 7 that night. So they could have a big old party before they robbed me. I don't know.
That didn't like you just walk in and everything's gone, or was the door?
Well, I have a carport. I put in the carport, and I was getting all my school clothes and my bags, and I was walking towards the back door, and I was like, "What is that?" And my top of my door is glass, and they busted that out, and it was little shards of glass. I looked up, and there's a big hole in my door. And I was like,
I did not go in.
I didn't. I called 911, and they were like, "Was there anything missing?" And I said, "I didn't go in yet." I mean,
that's how they be.
Like, keep the gun in your car.
You see a gun? Not yet.
Alright, fix to hit the lights, so hide your eyes. Alright, let's see if we can use this a little bit. And like I've told you multiple times, the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the min, the max, that is the high of the highest importance. This you don't see near as often, but I got to cover it, so we're covering it today. Alright. I don't think I've oriented this yet today because first period didn't use it. So let me orient. There we are. Let's just start seeing if we can learn how to use all that info that you wrote down. Okay, this says negative 4x equals y squared. My little mouse is on the negative there, but you can tell that's a negative. Negative 4x equals y squared. Here's what all our directions want us to do to practice using our stuff here. Identify the focus, the directrix, the axis of symmetry, and then graph. So we got 4 things we're going to do. Focus, directrix, axis of symmetry, and a graph. Okay? Alright, so first thing I want to know is which one of those little sections of that picture am I going to be looking at here? Okay, it's going to be a sideways facing one. Yes or no? You were right, so tell me. It's going to be a sideways facing one, yes or no? No. Because it's x to the first and it's y squared. So if I look on my stuff, x to the first and y squared. I think you confused me, Chloe. X to the first and y squared. Which one is that, top or bottom? It's the bottom, so it is going to be a sideways facing one. Okay, so we're all clear on that. It's got an x to the first power, it's got a y squared, so it is going to be what we would call horizontal, which they said over here a second ago. They were right. Now, the first thing we need to do whenever you figure out if it's horizontal or vertical is you need to solve the equation for that variable. So we need to solve this for x. So what's happening right now to my x? So we're going to undo that by dividing both sides by negative 4. Okay? So that gets me x equals... Now, here's where I got to think outside the box a little bit. I could leave it as y squared divided by negative 4, and that'd be correct. But if I'm trying to match it up with some of that stuff you wrote down a minute ago, it had a whole lot of 1/4 in it, didn't it? Yeah. And isn't dividing by 4 the same as multiplying by a fourth? Yes. So this would be the same as negative 1/4 y squared, wouldn't it? Okay? Okay. So far so good. Now, from that, we can identify all that stuff that we were told, because we're looking on the bottom because we got x and a y squared. Now the next thing I notice looking on those bottom two has to do with which way it's going to face. Which one of those you think we're dealing with? Okay, hold on, Tori. Is it this one or this one? This one? Why? She's right. Why? Because of the negative. So it's just like if it's a U or a mountain, the positive and negative would make it point right or point left. So we're down there on the bottom left side of the graph now. Okay? That equation that you wrote down says x equals 1/4p y squared. So we got to figure out what would the p be to give us that equation. Close. You're on the right. Laney Joe said 1. Here's what we're checking for. See what's different. Okay, 1 and 1, nothing changed there. 4 and 4, nothing changed there. So I don't want a number other than 1 to be in the p because I want that to stay a 4. Right? But this one's got a negative and this one doesn't. So to get that negative, I would need my p to be negative 1. So let's make a note here that our p is negative 1. Okay? Now, look at what all you can fill in now based on that. You know the focus, and this is right off of the notes that you copied. The focus is P0. Right? See that? The directrix is x equals negative p, so negative 1 would be 1. We know that because this opens sideways, the axis of symmetry would have to be there at the x-axis. So x-axis is y equals 0. That's your axis of symmetry. So the last thing we have to do is graph this thing. I'm going to write that stuff over here so I can see it and still make room for a graph. We have a focus of negative 1, 0. We have a directrix of x equals 1 and y equals 0 is our axis of symmetry. Okay, so we ready to graph this now? Of course. Of course. Alright. So my focus, -1, 0, be right there. What's the matter?
How do we know what our axis symmetry is?
For today, all of our vertexes are going to be at the origin.
Okay.
So our axis of symmetry will either, depending on which way it's opening, will either be the x-axis or the y-axis for today. We'll learn about moving it later, but that's a good question there, Tori. Thanks for checking on me. All right, so there's my focus, my directrix, and you saw where directrix is just a line. So what we know now about my parabola, and I just hinted to Tori about this, it has to be, my vertex has to be halfway between my focus and my directrix. My parabola has to encompass my focus. So it's got to go that way through the vertex. So I know I'm going to have a point at 0, 0. I just need to find, like we did earlier, now find one other point. So I don't want to plug in x equals 1. What kind of value am I going to want to plug in here? X equals 2 would be way over here. That's not going to be on that parabola. Okay, I could do x equals -2, but how about if I plugged a y in? Is that what you're about to say?
Sure.
Yeah. The reason, I didn't write the equation down over here. The reason it would be easy for me to plug a y in, remember the equation we got? Said that. If I can write it right. Said that. Is that the equation we got a second ago? Yeah. So if I plug a y in, it's solving it for x. Usually, this is backwards for us, usually we plug an x in. But the equation is usually the other way, right? It usually says y equals something. So now, equation's facing a different way. The parabola is going to face a different way, so it would be easier to plug a y in. Now, you don't want to plug y equals 0 in because that's this one. So you might go up to y equals 1 or down to y equals -1. So let's plug y equals 1 in. Okay, so x would equal -1/4 times 1 squared. What's 1 squared? 1. What's 1 times -1/4? -1/4. So I'm going to go left a quarter and up 1. So there's 1, there's a half, so a quarter would be right there, up 1 would be right there. Now what always confuses everybody is they're going to look at the dots that I have right there and they're going to say, well, that ain't making a parabola. Remember, right, and this focus isn't on your parabola, you surround that focus. So I'm going to use, like Laney Jo said, my axis of symmetry and move that down. Oh, and I didn't count on, I'm counting on red ones. It should be way up there, shouldn't it? Ah! 1/4 1. Put that down on the other side. And you know your vertex is there at the origin. So this thing is pretty fat, isn't it? It's hard to draw a fatty like that. Oh. Come on, work with me down there. Why is it so fat?
Because it's
1/4. Less than 1. Yep. Okay. We're going to try another one. But let me tell you this. The hardest math that you had there was figuring out, I didn't write it here, was figuring out, let me rewind, was figuring out what our P was. That was the hardest math that you had to do, was figuring out what the P was. After that, it was just new stuff, and so it's confusing to us, but we'll keep practicing. Yes, ma'am?
Why do we have a focus? What is it for?
That is supposed to be, let me read you the definition, equidistant. Let's see here. equidistant, or some definition for focus. A parabola is defined as the set of all points in a plane that is equidistant from a fixed point called the focus. Now, when you see this in real world, is like if you think about a satellite dish. That place where what's that? I don't even know what they're called, but that place where it comes out to look for your signal, that would be like the focus of that satellite dish. So, I guess if you want to start going into business and making satellite dishes. Let's try another one. Let's try another one. Alright, we got negative 2x equals y squared. Alright, so first off, let's just digest which way this is going to face. Is it going to be a U? Is it going to be a mountain? Is it going to point right? Is it going to point left? It's going to be sideways. Ding, ding, ding. It's going to point left. Ding, ding, ding. Because I got an x to the first and a y squared. That tells you sideways. And if I get this x all by itself and divide by a negative 2, that's going to make my a be negative. So it's going to open to the left. Let's go ahead and solve that. Now remember, when I rewrite this, the formula that I'm going to cheat off of in just a second says 1/4. So I want to rewrite dividing by 2 as a fraction so I can compare to see what I need to do to make it 1/4. So I'm going to write negative 1/2 y squared. That's the same thing, right? Okay. So we got to figure out now what our P is. Hold on. If I did 2, that would make 1/8. I got to figure out what can I do to a 4 down here that would make it a 2. Take half of it, right? So my P would need to be positive or negative. I'm positive here, I'm negative here, so it's going to be negative 1/2.
Wait, so you're trying to make that problem in
Yes.
this problem. Okay, so
Yes.
not the other way
So
around.
what would I have to put in the P spot to make it be the problem I gave you?
Got it.
Okay. And now, go ahead. Oh, I thought you were going to tell me something smart. Now that P gives you all of your answers. So what would my focus be?
Wait.
So we're good on our focus? What about my Directrex?
X equals positive. How does? Oh yeah, it's just on the
Opposite, And then axis of symmetry would be y equals 0, be at the axis again. So, there's my focus. There's my Directrex. I need to make that solid since I usually do axis of symmetry dashed. So I know it's got to open that way like you already told me and surround that point. So I just need to pick another y. When my parabola is sideways, it's always easier to pick y's. So I'm going to now just pick another y to plug in. I got a preference here. I could do 1. Let me go ahead and, since I know I'm dividing by 2, let me go ahead and do an even number. So I'm going to do 2. But 1 would work. 1 would work. All right, so if I plug that 2 in, 2 squared is 4. Half of 4 is 2, and then make it a negative. So I'm going to go left 2 and up 2.
Wait, what's your axis?
My axis of symmetry will be y equals 0 on the axis there. Thank you, Miss Riley. So left 2, up 2. And I needed to know that because now I got to match it like Riley was thinking. Down there. That's a sad looking parabola.
Looks like a fish.
Yeah.
See what they.
Not wrong.
Should have used graph paper. Maybe I could have made it better. I was lazy. Remember, I was lazy. It's a bad habit. We didn't do this Thursday. I think I got that one on YouTube, so you need to watch it 17 times. And it's like Coach Otto overload your show going on. It's okay. I understand. If I had to watch myself, I would do it. So I'm still looking at it. Oh no, I must be going to start this one off different, huh?
Oh no. I want to get in the hang of it.
That's how I roll.
Yeah. Oh God,
Okay, so this time, the directions say, write the equation of the parabola shown. Alright, so first thing I want to do, if I'm going to write the equation for that parabola, is I need to know which cheat sheet I'm copying off of. And I know how you'll distinguish this from the other types of problems that we got is that Directrex. So I've graphed the Directrex up there, and you can count on the red lines and see that that is 1, 2, 3. So if I got a Directrex up there at y equals 3. So I know that gets me on the cheat sheet that we took a picture of in our notes. So, is this one of the top two where the parabolas are making U's and N's, or is it one of the bottom two where they're sideways? Okay, top, because it's an N. So what does the equation say with the P in it? Read me that equation. Y equals 1/4 P x squared. That P on the bottom, is that how it writes it? I want to write it like y'all are writing it.
It's like with the 4.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. So we know 1, 2, 3. We have a Directrex at y equals 3. And we know that this has to be halfway between our Directrex and our focus. So if this point right here, this vertex, is halfway between our Directrex and our focus, what would our focus have to be? Okay, so it would have to be 0, -3. So there's our focus. And we just got that by counting, because the vertex has got to be halfway. Now, if we know the Directrex and we know the focus, don't we know the P?
Yes.
Look at that chart that you wrote down, because the signs are confusing. That's what changes from those 4 quadrants that you wrote down, is what sign you're using. So what is our P on the one that's going upside down? Y equals -P. Am I looking at the right one on Rivers? Y equals -P. So what does that say? Let me get back on hers again. What's the focus is P0. So I'm looking at the wrong one. The focus is 0P. So focus and Directrex have the opposite sign. So 0, -3. So my P is -3. True? Y'all already deduced that? You're waiting on me? My P is -3. So I'm looking here at y equals 1/4 times -3.
How do you do that?
Let me look at your notes. We can.
I'm very lost.
That's okay.
I have like notes on
All right. So say we
Yeah.
our P the y of our focus.
Yeah.
So our focus was 0, -3. So our p was -3.
Oh, good.
And we knew our focus was there just because we counted it. This has to be in the middle. Yes.
That.
On that one.
On that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we're almost done writing our equation here. My last step is I can figure out what 4 times -3 is. So I'm looking at y equals -112 x squared for my equation. You get that, Garrett?
Ma'am,
I don't know about that.
I don't write notes because I'll never look at them.
Oh, then.
I've never looked at notes. I really don't. And I have all A's, so I mean, it obviously works.
That's the work that's right. That's so weird. Yeah.
Like I literally don't write notes. It doesn't help.
So is that the equation?
Yep, so that's all we were asked for. Write the equation and we did.
Wait, what about the axis?
The axis of symmetry on that one would be the x, no, it would be the y-axis. So you would write x equals 0.
I was a lot.
Yeah, I concur.
It's like 3 years. It's like this classroom. I'll be there.
I used to play it. It's just, I just want yeah. For sure.
Okay, here's what I want you working on your table buddy with. I've got a parabola that has a vertex at 0, 0 and a directrix at y equals 6. I got a parabola with a vertex at 0, 0, you'll be quiet, and a directrix at y equals 6. I want you to see if you can write the equation for that parabola.
Oh, do we need to draw?
You don't have to. If it's helpful to you, you can, but you don't have to. Garrett, write this equation.
Oh. Don't.
Talk to somebody. Give it a whirl.
Oh, so one of these.
Make sure you're looking in the right section. Everybody agree on the section of your cheat sheet.
That
So, up, down.
yeah.
Three.
The high school.
Down one.
Which one of these do you need to do that? So as you get directed to y equals. Since there's only 2 of them that have that. Let's see. This one directed to this one says y. So it's got to be one of these top. So now you got to figure out if you think it's going to go up or down. That's based on what they gave you on the school books. It's going to go down. Well, that stuff is possible, you're right. But what you have, if the vertex is here and the directrix is here, the vertex has to be halfway between them. So if the directrix is there, the focus has got to be down here.
I just need to know if I'm getting somewhere, if I'm getting completely wrong direction.
I think you're going good.
So I just put that in that with
Well, all I need is the equation, so all I need you to do is simplify that.
Oh, okay, cool.
You're were raising your hand.
No, was it? I was doing like this.
That was the longest stretch I've seen.
So if I'm dying after
All I need is the equation.
Hey, Chloe. There goes it. She's like this, you should drive with this. Get it.
Are you from the beginning?
Wait, how do you do it?
So here, this is what we do.
You have to actually pay attention on not doing it.
I'm hearing good conversation. I just want to get everybody on the same page, and then I'll leave you alone again in just a second. Look at what I've drawn over here on this dry erase board. The vertex is at 0, 0. This is what I was given. The vertex is at 0, 0. The directrix is at y equals 6. What I know about that is that the vertex has to be halfway between the directrix and the focus. So if the vertex they told me is here, and the directrix they told me is here, that means it has to open down because the focus has to be down here, and that's the definition of focus. It's surrounded by the parabola. So I can't have a focus down here and the parabola open up. The focus has to be inside the curve. Okay, so I know it's going to open down. Only reason I drew that is so that would make me know which of those 4 sections of that note to look at. So I'm looking at the one where it goes down. Okay, the one where it goes down says y equals 1/4 px squared. Is that what y'all see? Okay, so we got y equals 1/4 px squared. You just got to figure out what your p is, and it tells you on that section of the notes you copied. If you're looking in the right one where it's going down, it says p equals what? Y equals negative p, and my y is 6, so I just take the opposite of that. So my p is negative 6. So all you have to do, the only math involved here, is figuring out what 4 times negative 6 is.
That's 1 1/2. Negative 1 1/2.
Now you might have put your negative somewhere else.
My calculator gave me a different answer.
It didn't know what 4 times 6 was?
I think I typed it wrong. Should have just done it in my head.
Yeah. You might put your negative somewhere else, and that's okay as long as you only have one negative in a fraction. It can go anywhere. Okay?
Wow.
Good, good, good. Now, I told y'all at the beginning, you've never seen this before, so it's new and confusing. You're not going to see it very much more anyway. Even on the ACT, if there's a question about graphing a parabola, it's going to be talking about vertex, axis of symmetry, min and max, all that major stuff that we did last week that we're going to still do some more of. Okay? But every now and then, there's a focus question, so we know that a focus has to be surrounded by the curve, and everything is based off of 1/4. Okay, that's the important stuff to remember about a focus. All right, let me just wait till Tori gets that typed in and see how she did.
I figured it out.
Yeah.
Got it? Did you get it, Alyssa?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we good for today?
Ma'am.
Yep.
All right.